Once upon a time, I was homeless. At one point, I was a drifter bouncing around different parts of the country. But before I started bouncing around different parts of the country, I'd been homeless in Harrisburg, stayed at Bethesda Mission. Once I left Bethesda Mission, I was doing day labor work through a tip service. Then I heard Bethesda had a opening for a weekend cook. I applied for it, and then I went from being the weekend cook at Bethesda to being the food service director. Then there was a disagreement with management, and that was when I just left and became a drifter for a few years. Now, during that period, I ended up in federal prison. When I was released from prison, I didn't have a regular place to stay, so I stayed at a local shelter there, and the manager of that shelter knew of a new shelter that was about to open and needed someone to run it, and he contacted the agency that was opening it and suggested that they hire me to run it. So I ran that shelter for about 3 years, and then I returned to Harrisburg. When I came back to Harrisburg, I was living with some friends, and I went to work at Downtown Daily Bread, working with the homeless. And then I started having some medical issues and ended up leaving there.
Two and a half years ago, I fell in my apartment building in the laundry room and I broke my back. I had to quit my job. I went for unemployment, and unemployment said because of the situation, I couldn't get unemployment. I had a little bit of savings behind me, and I was able to stay in the apartment building for about 2 to 3 months, and then I asked them if they would be willing to work with me until I was able to get on my feet financially. Well, they weren't willing to work with me. They said I had to get out. So the only option available to me was the YWCA. You know, people just don't understand what it's like to, not have a place of your own. To have to depend on an institution. It's really a hard thing. It's really a hard thing to do. And I have to work hard and keep my spirits up. I really do.
Hi, my name is Clarissa. I'm 44 years old. I have 3 kids.
Well, my name is Selena, and I am 17 years old.
I'm a single mother, always been taking care of my kids. It was hard. because I had to pay rent, bills, and also take care of 2 kids. So I didn't really make a lot of money. At that time, my daughter went through some trauma. My oldest daughter, she had PTSD and bipolar disorder, and it was hard because she was always in the hospital. So I always had to miss work. So that's what led to being homeless.
One day I was at my friend's house and my mom tells me that she moved all our stuff from the house that we were at, and then she's at the shelter. And I just started crying. Like all my life really, we weren't rich, and it was like always struggling. Like really, we never really lived in our own house. Like we always lived with people because we couldn't afford our own house.
Because all my life I worked, and my kids could tell you, I always worked. But now, I'm pretty sick.
It was scary, you know. I didn't know what was gonna happen to her. And our dad wasn't in our lives, and we didn't have any family here, so I didn't know where we were gonna go. And who would accept us, you know.
We went to the YWCA, it's also the shelter. I was working when I went to the shelter, but it was hard for me because my kids, they weren't allowed to stay in the shelter by themselves.
At the shelter, it was like overwhelming. When my mom wasn't there and we couldn't be at the shelter, so I only had this one friend that I couldn't stay at her house, and I would just stay at her house until my mom did get home. And what sucked a lot was the beginning of high school, and I started out in a shelter. That sucked.
The support network is an extremely important thing. If you don't have anybody to rely on, anybody you can count on for helping you, then you're pretty much lost. And quite often the support network that they do have are other homeless people. So there are limitations on what they can do for each other. There are efforts, something known as Housing First, which is let's get the housing together, get people in housing, get them off the streets. If you're homeless and on the streets, or living in an encampment or living in your car, there's a problem of self-care. If you have an injury where the dressings need to be changed and it needs to be cleaned and all of that every day, if you don't have the resources to do that, that's going to greatly impact on your health. I think that Housing First idea is a great one. If the doctor says go home and stay in bed, they have a bed to go home and stay in.
I'm a normal person that comes down to downtown Daily Bread for help. They give me assistance with food. They give me bus passes. I don't know what I'll be doing if they weren't here.
Daily Bread every day at 12:30 to 1:30. I can get a good meal, some warm coffee, keep me out the cold for a while so I can get warmed up and get back out there. But it's a home to a lot of people. People come here to eat. They come here to take showers and stuff like that. And it's a real blessing that the Daily Bread is actually in service to the people in the community. So I'm blessed to have the Daily Bread. I know everyone else is blessed to have the Daily Bread. Thank you for the Daily Bread.
Don't give up on a person because 10 or 20 bad experiences before them. Each person is different and each person deserves to be given a chance.